What is up, everybody? I'm Caleb Ochoa, also known as NFL Caleb 22. And this is been NFL week number 7. As always, here with me is my co host, Derek Wesley, also known as DWeezy. What is going on, man?
Man, ready to get into it. We're about hitting the halfway point on the season. It flies by, but it's another week. We got, Thursday night football right around the corner, ready to kick things off. So it's time to dive into these lines.
And that's exactly what we're about to do. As always, giving you our 5 best bets of the week. Before we can do that, we have to recap what happened last week. And before we do that, we gotta say what's up to my dad, as always. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll start with what happened in week 6 and recap. Not too much on the trends. I mean, there wasn't really anything, even overall, it's pretty even. Home teams, favorites, a lot, very, very, close, either close to 50-50 or just slightly over one way or the other. The only thing that stood out from last week was home teams against the spread. They went 9-6. Home dogs went 5-3. So we saw a lot of home teams win against the spread, and then we saw not a lot of points scored. We get 5 overs and 9 unders. Um, so yeah, that was probably the biggest week for the unders I've seen so far. But yeah, still overall very very even. I like to go with the trends, but they're just not giving me really anything so far this season.
Yeah, so far it seems, we're getting a good bit of parity across the league outside of just a couple of teams. You combine some teams fighting injury and things of that nature. Um, a couple teams out there underperforming. It's kind of muddying the waters a little bit on some of these trends, and where you have some teams regressing and maybe other teams stepping up a little bit. I think we're seeing just at least at the moment, a lot of teams sort of just in that middle area.
We'll go with our records of the week, and I finally had a winning record. It's been a little while. I did go 3-2, with my best pick being Seahawks plus 1.5 at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I called it out right last week. That I just thought that they would upset the Jags, even though it was a small upset, just because they were a better team. Even though their record was worse going into the game. I thought the Jags kind of stole that one against the Chiefs, which I kind of thought that inflated why they were the favorite, because I really thought the Seahawks should have been favored in that one. Sam Darnold took care of the ball, which is the one thing I thought he needed to do, especially with going against the Jaguars. It's kind of their thing to create turnovers, and they did not get one. They got zero for the first time this season, and that trip that was a main factor in this game. It's kind of low scoring, 20-12. And that's kind of all the Seahawks needed to do was not turn over the ball. They would get the win, and yeah, I think they can build on that, and yeah, I think going forward, like I said, the Seahawks just been getting better, and this proved this week, and I'm gonna continue to put my money down on them going forward.
Yeah, when it comes to the Seahawks this season with Sam Darnold at quarterback, if you can avoid the turnovers, the defense is going to go out there and perform well enough to not only keep you in the game, but possibly win you the game. Seattle themselves have excelled in the turnover this season. And, to that matter of Sam Darnold not turning over the ball against the Jaguars, it's been more it's been fumbles that they've majority gotten their turnovers. So it's not necessarily been interceptions in the passing game. And, you know, that's been the big issue with Sam Darnold over the years. If he doesn't turn over the ball, he's shown that, he has a lot of the attributes to be a quality quarterback. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it's been he does make those turnovers and bad decisions, and that's been the inconsistency that's made it difficult trying to back him over the years. But with the defense that you're going to see out of McDaniels, it does make it a little more comfortable getting involved with Seattle.
All right, and your record?
Um, Unfortunately, a losing week, 1-3-1. Missed out on the possibility of Kincaid playing Monday night. Unfortunately, the one downside to, making plays early in the week, you don't necessarily have all the injury information moving forward. And, I think we saw Buffalo struggle in that game offensively, and that's possibly a reason why. Um, you know, was correct on my man Tedero McMillan coming in with his first career TD plus money, plus 140 on that, going up against a bad defense. And we were able to capitalize back to back weeks with a rookie getting their first career TD. So unfortunately, didn't have a winning week. Got burned a little bit on the Thursday night game. I said the game
I
would
told
come.
you. I literally warned you on the show last week
Hey,
not
I
to take
said the
the
I said the
Eagles.
game would come down to the trenches. I was correct on that point. It was the other side of the point
Yeah,
where
I
I
mean, I
found
just
myself.
did not like you taking any type of throwing prop with Jalen Hurts the way he's throwing
And
the ball.
unfortunately, that's the thing about handicapping. You want to be able to get the quote unquote players in position to outside of that AJ Dillon fumble, the prop was very live, even late into that game. And if we don't see Dillon fumble, we're talking about having the ball, 20, 25-yard line, I believe, maybe somewhere in the 30-yard line, but deep in the enemy territory, multiple minutes on the clock. And the scenario being maybe the defense is playing soft and just going to let you get to the end zone. So, you know, one of those matters where if you can avoid the turnovers, it can, sway things very differently in the game because we did not see the Eagles get the ball back. I believe it was something like a 5 or 6 minute drive that we saw out of the Giants to cap off that game. And, sometimes that's the way things swing when you're in these betting markets.
Yeah, and my worst pick, going off that Bills game, I took them -4.5 at the Falcons. They lose it 14-24. Yeah, just Bills just are not as good as I thought they were. Um, I thought they were, a good team, and good teams usually bounce back after embarrassing losses. But instead, they had back to back the poor performances. Bijan Robinson just ripped their defense apart, especially with that 81-yard touchdown run. I mean, damn. I mean, but he didn't just do it on the ground. He did it through receiving yards, getting 6 receptions, 68 yards. Josh Allen just has not been as sharp lately. He's kind of been reverting back to his old ways of turning over the football and kind of playing really risky. He threw 2 picks in that game. He just can really provide any big plays for the Bills. Falcons, like I said, they were going up and down. They definitely had an up and had back up. So yeah, they had 2 good performances for the Falcons, and they look more and more like a viable bet, more secure bet than their kind of up and down ways early in the season. Now they look more like a consistent bet there.
Yeah, it's a tale as old as time. Don't turn the ball over. And, outside of last year, it's a problem that we've seen Josh Allen struggle with over the season. I mentioned them not having Kincaid. I touched on it last week how much they utilized the tight end position. And unfortunately, we've seen Josh Allen have to carry this team a lot offensively. And it was a matter of if he didn't have a great game, this offense wasn't going to perform, and that's what we saw.
All right. That will wrap up week 6. Um, before we get into our five best bets of the week, if you guys can go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And if you really want to help us out, you can join Patreon, join Coffee, do all that. And you can do that by hitting any of the links in the description down below. Very much appreciate it. We very much appreciate you just for watching. But now we will get into week number 7 in our five best bets. And since I had the winning week, I'll start it off and I'll take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 5.5 at the Lions. I'm not going to stop putting my money on Mr. Baker Mayfield. They just he really just keeps making money for me. Whether they win or lose in this game, it just seems like it's going to come down to less possession as it has so often this season with the Buccaneers. Um, and with this 5.5 point spread, it confuses me a little bit. Surprises me that they are that big of a dog. Obviously they have a lot of injuries, so that's a big factor into why. But I mean, he just seems to Baker just seem to have be able to overcome that all those injuries and still keep winning games. The Lions seem to have taken a step back after a loss after against the Chiefs, and especially after the aftermath of that game, losing Brian Branch for the game. So that's going to definitely hurt them in their secondary. And I think Baker definitely could take advantage of that the same way Mahomes kind of got going in the passing game there. I'm just gonna keep riding with the Bucks until they improve me otherwise. But Bucks 4-2, I think, in the last 6 games. So definitely like him here. Plus 5.5 is a lot. So I think that's a good bet to make.
Yeah, definitely getting points. Like you said, plus 5.5. That's a lot of points. How often do we, see a game finish 3, 4 point victory? We're talking about being able to cover any scenario with that outcome, whether it's a late touchdown by the opposite opposition or some garbage time TD that made the scoreboard look better than what the game actually was. But either way, both scenarios, you're talking about covering that number easily. So, it is a bit odd to see them put up that 5.5. Not closer, 6.5, something like that. I think that shows a lot of lack of faith in the Detroit Lions. And, you know, that's reflected by what we saw last week. And, you also mentioned missing not necessarily a key player, but you never want to be without a starter, especially something like a pretty much boneheaded mood after the game, scuffle. We've all seen the footage, suspended for the incident with Juju Smith Schuster. And that's just not the things you want going on and having to deal with mid season.
All right, your first bet.
You know, going out to, the LA Rams, gotta go with Stafford. This offense has, produced a lot of, maybe even overperformed a little bit. Yes, there's some questions about if we'll see Puka Nakua play, but that is one of the benefits of having a coaching staff like Sean McVay and what he's been able to produce in the staff, with his staff and in the past. They're taking on a Jaguars defense that, yes, in a lot of ways you think of them, playing well this year, but they have struggled in the passing game, 30th in passing yards allowed and 30th in yards per completion. I think we see the LA Rams lean more on that passing game, something we've seen them do a lot in the past. Currently this year, we had a lot of questions about Stafford's health coming into the season, and that has not been the case. And, we've seen him play well, multiple 300 passing yard games, I believe. Um, looking at this over 249 and a half passing yards, you're talking multiple times this season he's cleared this number. So, yes, there are some concerns going into this game taking on the Jaguars defense, but when we're talking about that pass defense, like I mentioned before, on paper you see a lot of turnovers, but when you look at what those turnovers are from, it's more been the fumbles where they're eighth in the league in fumbles versus only having, I believe, maybe one interception on this season. Um, I could be mistaken on that, but we're not talking about them forcing turnovers in the passing game. So being able to rack up those yards, the Rams don't necessarily have to use their run game. I think this plays into a game script where we see Stafford throwing a lot and being able to move the ball around and pick up the yardage needed to get over this number.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I mean, Stafford's had the most yards and passing yards in the league right now. He's playing really good. And yeah, it's very surprising after a lot of the questions came before the season whether his back would hold up. It looks fine. He's playing great. So
I
yeah,
mean, I've heard nothing come out of, anybody all season long saying he's even nicked up.
yeah, maybe yeah. I guess they all the precautions that they've taken really actually worked. I mean, they were actually right on the money on that one. All right, I'll get moving on to my next bet, and I got the Seahawks -3 at home versus the Houston Texans. Just like I said last week, I mean, I think in this case, Seahawks are just better than their AFC South opponent. It's kind of the same story here. Seattle has been crushing it, going across the country and whatnot. They get to come back home. Not that they'll definitely be ready to go. I think the defense will swarm on CJ Stroud. You talked about earlier how McDonald's defense has been holding up, and I definitely like them to contain this Texans offense and contain those receivers. Um, and on the other side, I like the way, like I said, I like the way Sam Donald took care of the ball last week. I think that will continue this week, and will provide them just enough offense to cover that 3-point spread. The Seahawks 4-1 last 5 games, so like laying the points here against Texas team that kind of underachieved this year. Um, but yeah, and Seahawks kind of overachieved. So definitely like them.
Yeah, no, and it's not just this year. I mean, this Houston's Texan team has pretty much underperformed for a season and a half now. Um, and so we talked about it. Like you said at the beginning of the episode, the Seattle team can lean on their defense, and so it's a question of what can the Houston offense do against this McDaniel's defense. And I would not be shocked if we see another game where they hold their opponent under 20 points in the game. I do believe they can win the turnover battle in this matchup. And, there's a big reason why the winner of the turnover battle is usually the winner of the game. And so you talk about, -3 on the spread. Worst case scenario, you got to push on the table if it does come down to a 3-point victory. But definitely got to like Seattle at that number. Going into my next play, you know, it paid off for me last week. Going with the hometown team, got my man Tedero and McMillan into the end zone. So we're going back to the Carolina passing game as they take off and as they take on an awful New York Jets defense. Going Bryce Young over 1.5 passing TDs plus 128. We've seen him throw multiple TDs this season already. We see Jalen Coker coming back. We see Jimmy Horn Jr. being utilized more within the passing. Well, not just the pass offense, but within the offense itself, adding another wrinkle, giving defenses something to think about, further opening up that passing game. And, we've seen multiple times this season Bryce Young late in game driving comebacks, whether they end in a victory or not. you're talking about successful offensive plays, usually through the pass game, picking up yardage, maybe garbage time TDs. So even if it doesn't lead to a victory, which it is odd to see a team with the momentum like the Panthers have at the moment going up against a winless team. The numbers open with the Jets as a favorite, which seems just downright insulting. So to be able to get Bryce Young over 1.5 pass TDs in this game, plus money, yes, give it to me. Got plus money on my Panthers last week getting into the end zone, and now we're going to try and get into the end zone twice. Let's do it, Panthers. Keep pounding. Keep getting these TDs, Bryce, and let's keep cashing that money for the people out there.
I'll be right there with you. I'm taking the Panthers -1 at the New York Jets. Um, I mean, Jets are just awful. I mean, they're a terrible team. They're winless for a reason. I mean, their offense is not good. They barely scored any points against the Broncos. I mean, the Cowboys defense, who is complete garbage, look half decent against them. That just tells you how bad they've been playing. Yeah, and then yeah, we got Rico Dowdle with the Panthers just dominant for two straight games as he tore through my Cowboys defense, tore through in the previous game. I forget who they played. Um,
The Dolphins.
the Dolphins. And yeah, this is another. I mean, the Jets are just right back in that category with
Exactly. I mean, you're
those two
talking
teams.
about getting behind one of the hottest players in the league right now, whether that be, luck of the draw with scheduling and timing. Either way, you're talking about, even if these, narrative is, oh, he can only do it against bad defenses. Well, guess what? He's taken on another bad defense.
Yeah.
So, the logic still applies that Rico
It's
Dowdle.
just like it's just another pin to knock down. So yeah, he's probably going to tear it up against the Jets as well. And Bryce Young, he's building confidence, getting a couple with these couple games of success. And yeah, on the other side, Just Fields just hasn't had anything positive. Panthers 4-1 last 5 games, and Jets 7-13 as a spread in the last 20 games. So do not expect them to cover that 1 point spread. Like you said, I thought they'd be much bigger favorites, but if it's only -1, I mean, how can you not lay that 1 point?
Absolutely. I mean, if there's ever a Panthers game where you potentially want to look at some of the alternate numbers and take them at a -3, -4, see, get wild, -6.5, say they win by a touchdown, see what kind of odds you can get from the books on some sort of alternate number like that. Because this really does feel like a situation where the Panthers can capitalize on a bad opponent. Yes, I'm a fan, but we're still talking about a team that's won 3 out of their last 4 games. You know, yes, they're undefeated at home, currently on the road for this game, but we're talking about a 0-6 team. And, you know, regardless of who the team was, give me the team that's been winning versus the winless team anytime.
All right.
Now, moving into my next one, going to the Thursday night game, we got,
Sure. I mean, last Thursday night didn't work out.
well, you got to always, take it on the chin when it happens. But going, we like trends around here.
We do.
Going to DJ Metcalf, who has scored a touchdown in the last 4 games. Now, we've seen Aaron Rodgers in the past develop this, not necessarily tunnel vision in a bad way. We're not talking about, necessarily making bad throws, but he definitely likes to lock in on a guy when he finds somebody he likes. And TJ Metcalf seems to be that guy. He's racked up a TD in each of the last 4 games, and they're still giving you a plus number in this matchup, plus 130. And we're talking about a Bengals defense that came into the season struggling, and we've seen nothing but struggle from them as we've gone on. The offense can't stay on the field, can't produce, thus leading to more opportunities for the Pittsburgh offense to go out there on the field and potentially reach the end zone, giving us more opportunities to cash in on this anytime touchdown with Metcalf. And like I said, a TD in the last four straight games, still giving you plus money. These are the things we like to see around here. Trends are your friends, so I'm gonna be getting behind Metcalf with this prop.
Yes, Jay, you can rub it in. I hope you guys play as well as you did last week, this week, because I'm taking the Panthers. So there you go. But moving on to my next pick, and I got the Colts +2 at the Chargers. Colts are rolling with Jonathan Taylor on the ground. That's where the Chargers actually have been struggling. It's kind of surprising under a Jim Harbaugh team. Usually they like to play defense on the ball, and they kind of been struggling on both accounts. One lot of has to do with injuries on both sides of the ball. On defense, the running backs hurt. Devon Achan last week ran for 120 yards, two touchdowns on them. Uh, the Chargers have deficiency in the backfield, the receiving core, and Colts haven't lost at home. I think. Even at that, I still think it'd be a back and forth battle. You still got a good quarterback over there, Chargers. Obviously, with the Colts, you have Daniel Jones playing his ass off, but I think the better, healthier team will come out with the win, and that just happens to be the Colts. And getting +2 is kind of just cherry on top. So I'll definitely take the points if you're going to give them to me. So yeah, I'm going with them.
Yeah, it's not the sexiest sounding pick, but it doesn't take much of an argument to get behind the Indianapolis Colts so far this season. I mean, it's the ugly truth of the NFL right now. The Colts might be the best team in the AFC. Yeah, you might not want to say it. It might not feel good for some to say Daniel Jones is out there balling. We're seeing this team that a lot of people expected to finish near last in their division, going out there and week in and week out, just you know dominating offensively and defensively playing, fairly admirable. Maybe nothing lights out, but more than adequate defensive production to not only keep them within the games, but, help solidify some of these wins. And so far, nobody's been able to really slow down this offense. So, you getting plus money with a team that's been winning as much as the Colts in this game. Like I said, it's not hard to want to take them. Now, going to my next one, I know at least one person out there that's probably not going to care for this, but going with Jackson Dart to throw an
He's,
interception in
he's
the
not even
game.
listening, so yeah, you're good.
Oh, I'm not shocked if he wasn't listening, but he's facing off against a defense that's, been a monster within the league over the past couple of years. We saw him go out and sack the Justin Fields and the New York Jets 9 times in a game. Going with the Denver Broncos, we're going to see a lot of pressure from the Broncos, forcing not only the ball out of his hand faster, but potentially making throws that you don't necessarily want to make. And the combination of a rookie quarterback taking on defense like the Broncos, I do like the possibility for the opportunity to come about. Not necessarily confusion, but some mistiming, some misjudgment on a coverage or on a read. All you need is one. So going with Jackson Dart over on the interception prop.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Denver defense is really tough, but I don't know. Jackson Dart, it's pretty tough too. I mean, he just goes right head first into everything. So
No,
Um,
he can make everybody happy. Give me my interception and still win the game. I don't care. Just throw one to the other team.
all right, I'll get into my very last bet, and that will be the Patriots -7 at the Tennessee Titans. This is the Mike Vrabel revenge game. Got to put my money on him. I mean, obviously, going to be extra motivated to just really want to put it on his former team. Um, I don't think he would be shown any mercy in this game, especially with the red hot quarterback and Drake May running this offense. I don't think the Titans will be able to provide much resistance against him. And then you have on the other side, you just had the Titans coach fired. You get a new interim coach. Yeah, you can say you get a little spark from the new interim coach. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it they just they're just a bad team, and that's why they fired their coach and they get their ass kicked in that game as well. So I'm definitely betting on that to happen. I think Patriots win by double digits, and I mean I think the variable's going to want to run up the score. So 7 points doesn't really scare me at all. New England 4-1 against the spread last 5 games. Titans 3-16 against the spread last 19. 0-10 at home against the spread. They have no chance to cover even a 7 point spread like this.
Yeah, like I said, friends are your trends, and unfortunately, that just ain't the case for the Titans coming into this game. To embody Cam Ward, they ass. So you know, Vrabel has made it no secret that his feelings towards this game might get ugly come Sunday. So, you talk about a hot offense coming into this game. The Patriots, they came into the season thinking this defense would be leading the team, and it's kind of flip flop. And it's not because of a lack of play out of the defense. And as you said, we could potentially see a double digit victory in this game. Do not expect Vrabel to let up. Do expect a no mercy mentality because that's pretty much what Vrabel is walking around openly saying, not concerned with whoever hears him. So it could get ugly, folks. Now, to cap things up,
Well, just to answer Jay's question, he says at this point, I'm going to bet on Bryce Young to at least throw one interception per game. After that, a turnover man turns into 2018 TB12.
I mean,
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's kind of been the case. And last week, it wasn't even a case of a bad throw, bad decision. Hit the wide receiver right in the hands, just bounced off his hands and went straight to the defender. I mean, you know, you can't make excuses, but that's literally the way the play unfolded.
you just got to bet the
So,
trend.
yeah, I mean, that's really what that is. If you, the, and remember, if you're going to bet a trend, you're almost compelled to bet it 3 times because unless you called it at the beginning, you catch it, if you don't catch it the first time, it's not necessarily dead. You got to, play it again. It's not really a trend if you ain't played it 3 times. So, but I can't say he's wrong for wanting to potentially look at Bryce throwing an interception, though I think that shows the bounce back ability of the Panthers that he can throw that interception, and we've still seen him go out there and lead comeback drives and play, completely different type of football outside of that one decision. Now moving into my last play, you always love to see bad, well, not necessarily bad matchups, but a good player take on a bad defense. And this week we got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Miami Dolphins and going with Judkins, pushing the number up a little bit, going with over 94 and a half rushing yards, getting plus 128 on it. We're talking about a Miami defense that has struggled in a lot of ways, but especially against the run. Um, Giving up 5.6 yards a carry so far this season. And we're talking about a player that's, yes, he's a rookie, but he's flirted with going over this prop in multiple games. We saw him 2 weeks back go over 100 yards. And in an offense that may be looking to not lean on the pass game, a spark from Judkins could definitely lead to more usage throughout the game. I believe, his numbers coming in, over unders got him at 84 and a half. You push it up to 94 and a half, I'm getting plus money. Definitely like that in this matchup with, again, a Miami defense that has struggled against the run heavily this season.
All right, that is our bets for the week. Just hopefully you guys get all your bets before the games are played. Please bet responsibly. Only bet what you can afford to lose, and you can tell everybody where they can find you, DWeezy.
Yes, folks, you can find us here always on Wednesdays throughout the week. Also on the LGR website with articles between the lines, talking about different topics across sports, basically world. Whether that be betting, whether that be some of the outside the courts, outside the field, all still related, but ongoings about not only the leagues but sports in general.
Jay says if the Cowboys do get a top pick, watch Ruben Bain fall to replace Parsons. I don't know if anybody's going to replace Parsons. I mean, and it's just kind of dumb that we traded someone just so we can try to replace him. But yeah,
Well, hey, if y'all do that, and in 2 years when you go to trade them, you can send them to us, no problem.
sure thing. We'll do that. All right, you can find me at NFLK22 on Instagram and Twitter/X. You can find me on this channel doing Good Friends, Better Rivals on Fridays at 5 o'clock with Ferris, and we'll be talking uh, Cowboys lost to the Panthers, and looking forward to the Cowboys game against the Commanders, and we'll be talking Giants win against. Well, no, we already talked about Giants win against the Eagles, but we'll be looking forward to the. I don't even know who the Giants play, but we'll be talking about that game. So tune in for that. We thank you all for watching. And we'll be here back next week to give you our five best bets and going through what happened in week 7 as well. So please tune in for that. And like I always say, let's get ready to make that money.